Welcome, everyone. Today, we're doing a deep architect-level comparison of the three major hyperscalers, AWS, GCP, and Azure, specifically through the lens of data engineering. This isn't a marketing comparison, and it isn't a feature checklist. Every slide is going to give you a real trade-off, something you'd actually have to decide if you were building or operating a production data platform on one, two, or all three of these clouds. Here's the arc we'll take. We'll start with a mental model that maps cleanly onto all three clouds. Then we'll go concrete, an architecture diagram, then actual code. From there, we'll talk about production trade-offs, cost, auto-scaling, storage, networking. We'll ground all of it in a real case study. Then we'll look at the frontier, the one idea most likely to change how you architect your next platform. And we'll close with 5 heuristics you can take back to your team this week. One assumption going in: I'm going to assume you already have some working familiarity with at least one cloud's data stack, S3 and Glue, or BigQuery and Dataflow, or Synapse and ADLS. We're building from there, not from zero. Let's start with why this is actually a data engineering decision, and not just an infrastructure decision made once by someone else years ago that you now just live with. Storage formats, compute engines, IAM boundaries, cost models, none of these are portable by default. A data platform that's been built for one cloud's primitives quietly accumulates assumptions, and those assumptions make a later migration, or a merger, an acquisition, a new data residency law, a multi-cloud mandate, dramatically more expensive than it needed to be. Here's the pattern we see over and over across very different companies. Enterprise data organizations increasingly end up running production workloads on more than one hyperscaler, not because they planned it that way, but because of acquisitions, regional requirements, or vendor negotiation leverage. The teams that handle this well design for interoperability from day one. The teams that don't end up rebuilding their pipelines under deadline pressure, which is exactly the situation nobody wants to be in. Throughout this deck, we'll be comparing 4 core layers: storage, compute, orchestration, and governance, plus one newer layer that's become the actual interoperability story, the open table format. Keep that 5th layer in the back of your mind. We'll come back to it. This is the one slide I'd ask you to photograph, because everything after this is a deep dive into one row of this table. Every cloud's data engineering surface maps onto the same 5 layers, only the implementation changes underneath. Ingestion is how data gets in: Kinesis on AWS, PubSub on GCP, Event Hubs on Azure. Storage is the durable substrate: S3, GCS, or ADLS Gen 2. Table format is the newest layer to become a first-class citizen in this model. This is the metadata layer that sits on top of plain files and turns them into something with schema, transactions, and history. Iceberg, or Delta, or a mix depending on the cloud. Compute is what actually processes the data: EMR and Athena, or Dataproc and BigQuery, or Synapse and Databricks. And orchestration is what schedules and sequences all of it: Managed Airflow, Cloud Composer, or Data Factory. Notice the asymmetry here. AWS's offerings are more compositional. You assemble S3, Glue, EMR, and Athena yourself as separate services with separate billing and separate IAM surfaces. GCP and Azure lean more opinionated and integrated. BigQuery in particular does a lot of that work for you in one box. If you write this table down and get your own team to agree on it, that's often the highest leverage 2 hours a data platform team spends all quarter. Because half of the confusion we see internally isn't technical, it's just people using different words for the same layer. Let's make that mental model concrete. Here's one full pipeline, 1 column per cloud, following the same data journey from ingestion at the top down to BI at the bottom. Start with the AWS column. Kinesis Firehose ingests the event. It lands in S3 as raw or bronze data. Glue ETL transforms it and writes it out as an iceberg table. That becomes your curated or silver layer, still in S3. And then Athena or Redshift Spectrum query it, feeding QuickSight for BI. Notice this is the most compositional stack of the 3. 5 separate services, 5 separate operational surfaces. That's powerful because you can swap out any piece for a best-of-breed alternative, but it also means more integration code that your team has to own. Now GCP. PubSub ingests, lands in GCS, Dataflow transforms it into BigLake, which is Google's Iceberg-compatible layer. And then here's the interesting part. BigQuery is doing double duty as both the curated storage layer and the query engine. That's GCP's most opinionated architectural bet. It buys you real operational simplicity at the cost of being more committed to BigQuery's execution model. And Azure. Event Hubs ingest, land in ADLS Gen 2, Databricks transforms into Delta tables, and then Synapse serverless SQL queries it for Power BI. Worth calling out explicitly. In practice, most serious Azure data shops are running Azure Databricks rather than native Synapse Spark pools, because Databricks' Delta engine optimizations are noticeably faster in real workloads. The shape of all three pipelines is identical, only the boxes differ. That symmetry is really the entire point of the mental model we just walked through. And in production, the step that eats the most engineering time isn't picking the cloud. It's that transform step, where schema evolution, partition strategy, and compaction jobs live. Let's ground that transform step in actual code. This is a PySpark job that reads raw events and upserts them into an Iceberg table. And the same job definition runs unmodified on EMR, on Dataproc, or on Databricks. Only the Spark session configuration changes per cloud. Look at the cloud target class at the top. That's the entire cloud-specific surface area of this job, just a bucket path and an Iceberg catalog URI. Everything below that is cloud-neutral Spark and Iceberg API calls. Walking through the function, it opens a structured streaming read using Databricks' autoloader pattern, validates the incoming schema, and this is the highlighted line, calls into a validation function before writing anything. That validation call is deliberately treated as a black box here, because in practice, that logic is the most business-specific part of any ingestion job, and it looks basically the same no matter which cloud you're running on. Then it upserts into the Iceberg table with a streaming write, and critically, look at the exception handling at the bottom. We log the error and then we re-raise it. We don't swallow it. In streaming jobs specifically, swallowing an exception can mean a job silently stops consuming a partition while its dashboard still looks green. That's one of the more painful on-call situations you can create for yourself, especially across multiple clouds where each one alerts differently. The takeaway here, if your team writes ingestion logic directly against a cloud SDK instead of through Spark's cloud-agnostic connectors, you end up rewriting large chunks of your pipeline the day a second cloud enters the picture. Building this kind of thin abstraction, even on day one, even if you're single cloud today, is cheap insurance. Code portability is one axis. Now let's talk about where the three clouds genuinely diverge, what things actually cost, and how they behave under load. On AWS, EMR and Athena price per vCPU hour on top of EC2, so your cost is a direct function of instance selection. Autoscaling has a 2 to 4 minute lag, and AWS has by far the deepest spot market of the three. Well-tuned EMR clusters can run 70 to 90% on spot capacity for fault-tolerant batch jobs. If your team wants fine-grained Spark tuning and aggressive spot economics, this is where you'd lean. On GCP, BigQuery's default pricing is per terabyte scanned, which rewards good partitioning and clustering discipline, and can spike unpredictably if you don't review your queries. There's also a slots-based model that trades that variability for a fixed capacity reservation. Dataproc autoscaling reacts in under 60 seconds, the fastest of the three. This is the strongest fit for bursty, ad hoc analytics workloads. On Azure, Synapse and Databricks bill in consumption units, DWUs and DBUs, which abstract away the underlying VM. That simplifies forecasting, but it also obscures exactly what compute you're paying for. Azure's real strength here is unifying BI and ML on one governed lakehouse, tightly integrated with the rest of the Microsoft ecosystem. The single most common cost incident, by the way, looks almost identical across all three clouds. It's just wearing different clothes. On BigQuery, it's an unclustered full table scan. On EMR, it's a shuffle-heavy join spilling to disk. On Synapse, it's a DWU tier sized for peak load that quietly runs 24/7. Same root cause, different surface. Compute is only half the cost story. Storage and networking are the layer that's easy to ignore, right up until the first large cross-cloud transfer bill shows up. All three object stores now offer strong read-after-write consistency, which removes a whole class of eventual consistency bugs that used to require careful application-level workarounds. That's genuinely new in the last few years. On IAM, Azure's combination of RBAC plus POSIX-like ACLs on ADLS Gen 2 gives you finer folder and file-level control out of the box, which matters a lot for regulated data where you need directly level access boundaries. AWS and GCP can achieve similar granularity, but it takes more explicit policy engineering to get there. Egress is the line item that catches teams off guard. Every time a BigQuery job reads data sitting in S3, or a Databricks job on Azure reads from GCS, that's an egress charge stacked on top of the read itself. At multi-terabyte daily scale, that stops being a rounding error and becomes a real budget line. As a caveat, these figures change frequently, so treat the numbers on this slide as directional, not something to budget against directly. And on replication, AWS and GCP both offer turbo-tier options with roughly a 15-minute replication SLA in select configurations. Azure's GRS and GZRS are asynchronous without a hard SLA, which is fine for disaster recovery, but not for anything requiring bounded replication lag. The fix experience teams converge on: replicate a curated, already compacted copy of your data into the cloud where it's actually going to be queried, and treat cross-cloud reads as a deliberate, monitored exception, never the default access pattern. Let's ground all of this in a real, named example, instead of an abstract comparison. Spotify's engineering team has spoken publicly, at conferences and in blog posts, about consolidating its core analytics platform on GCP, built around BigQuery for warehousing and Dataflow for pipeline processing, at the scale of a large, globally distributed consumer product. Why bet on a single vendor at that scale? Consolidating warehouse, pipeline, and BI onto one cloud reduced the number of distinct operational systems the platform team had to run, monitor, and staff for. That's a real organizational cost being managed, not just a technical one. BigQuery's serverless model removed cluster capacity planning as an ongoing task entirely, a deliberate trade of some cost predictability for meaningfully less day-to-day operational toil. And here's a pattern worth copying regardless of which cloud you're on. Spotify built SEO, a Scala API over Apache Beam, and contributed it back to the open source ecosystem. Because Beam pipelines can in principle run on multiple runners, Dataflow, Flink, Spark, this kept their actual pipeline logic more portable, even while their operational choice was GCP first. You don't have to choose between single cloud simplicity and portability. Writing your logic against open, portable APIs captures most of the benefit of both. This is the single idea most likely to change how you architect your next data platform, regardless of which cloud you're on today. Apache Iceberg, Delta Lake, and Apache Hudi decouple a table's logical schema and transaction log from any single compute engine or cloud. A table written by Spark on AWS can be read by BigQuery on GCP or by Synapse on Azure without copying the data, because the metadata layer, not the storage location, is what actually defines the table. The mechanism is straightforward. These formats add a layer of manifest files and snapshots on top of plain files in object storage. That metadata layer is what gives you ACID guarantees, schema evolution, and time travel. The ability to query a table as it existed yesterday, or roll back a bad write in seconds instead of restoring from a backup or rerunning an entire backfill. 3 things worth taking away. First, engine independence. Any engine that speaks the format's open spec can read and write, so the cloud's proprietary catalog is no longer the real source of truth. Second, time travel and rollback. Snapshot isolation turns restore from backup into rollback to the prior snapshot, which is a completely different incident response experience. And third, and this is the honest caveat, format adoption doesn't eliminate operational work. It relocates it. Someone still owns compaction jobs, partition evolution, and the catalog service that different engines use to discover your tables. The teams furthest along this path treat the table format choice, increasingly converging on Iceberg for its broad multi-engine support, as a single platform-level decision, made once, deliberately, and documented. Fragmenting formats across individual teams or pipelines just recreates the exact lock-in problem this pattern is supposed to solve. Let's distill everything into 5 heuristics you can actually take back to your team. 1. Standardize on an open table format platform-wide. Iceberg, Delta, or Hudi, pick one deliberately, Write it down, and don't let individual pipelines drift onto different formats over time. 2. Treat cross-cloud reads as the exception, not the pattern. Replicate a curated copy into the cloud where you're actually querying. Don't let analytics compute routinely reach across a cloud boundary. 3. Match the compute engine to the workload shape, not to brand preference. Deep spot economics and fine Spark tuning favor AWS EMR. Bursty ad hoc analytics favor BigQuery. Unified BI and ML on one lakehouse favors Azure Databricks. There is no universal winner here, only a better or worse fit for what you're actually running. 4. Budget for egress and query scan costs explicitly from day one. These are the 2 line items that most reliably surprise teams months after a platform goes live. And 5, write your pipeline logic against portable APIs, Spark, Beam, open table format SDKs. That's insurance that costs very little upfront and pays out significantly the first time your organization's cloud strategy changes. And for most organizations at real scale, it eventually does.
A few pointers if you want to go deeper on any of this. The Apache Iceberg table spec is the canonical technical reference for the metadata layer we discussed in the Frontier section. AWS's well-architected data analytics lens is AWS's own framework for evaluating these trade-offs on EMR, Glue, and Athena. For pricing specifically, BigQuery's storage and query pricing docs and Azure's Databricks and Delta Lake architecture references bookmark both and always re-verify current numbers before you use them in a real budget, since cloud pricing pages are the fastest changing material in this entire deck. And if you want the source for the case study, look up Spotify Engineering's public data platform talks, along with the Apache Beam and SIO documentation for the portable pipeline pattern we covered. Let's close with one thought. The cloud you're on today is a reversible operational decision. The table format, the pipeline API, and the IAM discipline you choose today are what actually determine how reversible that decision turns out to be. We went from a 5-layer mental model to a concrete architecture to actual portable code, to the cost and behavioral trade-offs you'll hit in production, to a real case study, to the open table format frontier, and finally to 5 heuristics you can act on this quarter. If you take one thing from today, pick a single heuristic from that takeaway slide and turn it into a concrete action item. For example, auditing whether your pipelines are already fragmented across table formats, rather than treating this whole deck as aspirational. Thank you.